Did you see yourself in that video?
I did.
Let's go back to the beginning, please, and set it to play at 50% speed. And we'll turn the audio off this time. And we'll play from the beginning. Pause. We've paused at 21 seconds. You testified earlier that you initially ran towards the vehicle as it was driving away, is that right?
Correct.
Do we see you do that in this portion of the video?
Yes.
If you see yourself, can you circle yourself on the screen? So you're in the bottom right-hand corner. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. We can take that down. Did you see that red SUV stop at any point?
No.
As you were in real time remembering the events of that day, do you recall seeing any of your students getting hit?
I did not see any of my students get hit, only of the group in front of me. I just saw, like I said, things flying because they were in the formation. It came through the middle.
In the immediate aftermath, after the vehicle had gone through and after you had run after it briefly, did you have any personal interaction with any of your students who had been hit?
I did. There were several on the ground, and they were surrounded by other bystanders who stepped in. So I just basically was circulating on the ground between the students who were injured, and then the students had run away to several shops in the area. And so I was just, it probably was an hour, it felt like. I don't really know how much time it was exactly, but rotating between the students who were injured as we were waiting for first responders, as well as checking on the students and trying to at least keep the kids who were not injured in a space where we knew where they were, so we could safely get them home once all of our injured students had been picked up by first responders.
Do you know whether any of those students that you had personal interaction with had to be transported to the hospital?
There were several students that had to be taken to the hospital.
Do you know in general the nature of some of those injuries?
There was many broken bones, a lot of, there was internal bleeding, dental work that needed to be done, lots of stitches, cuts, abrasions, sprains, torn ligaments.
Did you remain in your capacity as the Waukesha South marching band director for the remainder of that academic year?
I did.
You eventually went back to school after that Sunday, the 21st, is that right?
That is correct. So we went back to school once we were assured that we had as many students that were still left in the area back to get them on the bus back to school.
You're talking about that night, Sunday
that
the
evening,
21st?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And in the days that followed, kids
Yes.
came back to school?
They did, yes.
And you had personal interaction with the members of your marching band?
Yes, I did.
Your objections noted. It's overruled.
Can we please put Exhibit 21 back up on the screen? And this has previously been admitted. It's the diagram. I'd ask that we put it up for the jury as well.
Go ahead.
Based on your own observations that day, your interaction with the students in the immediate aftermath, and your review of the video evidence here today in court, how many of those 10 members of your marching band were either struck or run over by the red SUV?
They all were.
Can you tell us whether or not you got a good look at the driver that day?
I did from the profile.
Approximately how many feet would you estimate you were from the driver at its closest?
Probably 2 feet.
You were still in the street at that point?
Correct.
And the SUV was too?
Yes.
We saw in the video what the lighting conditions were, but could you describe from your own memory what the lighting was like that day?
Overruled. You may answer.
The lights were beginning, the sun was beginning to set. However, we were in an area where we were by lots of stores, so the sun was still out, as well as the light coming from all the storefronts.
Could we project on the screen for the witness only, exhibit number 120? you see an image on the screen in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Is that image an accurate representation of what the driver of the SUV looked like that day when you saw him?
Completely, yes.
I'd move Exhibit 120 into evidence and ask to publish.
120 is received. Permission to publish is granted. May have been received earlier.
Yeah, it's already been received.
I believe you testified a little bit earlier about the driver's demeanor as you observed him. Could you go into more detail about that?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. She may answer.
So originally my perception just had been that I assumed there was an accident because I could not imagine anything else. But when the car went past me, my perception changed of what was happening completely, because the driver was looking straight ahead, looked very attentive at that point. So the driver clearly was aware that he had hit and run over all of these people. It was not something that could have happened without the driver's awareness. We were also coming up on an intersection of a cross street. And although there was a crowd on the side, again, this is just my perception, but if the driver had been trying to escape the parade route so they were no longer hitting people, I felt like an instinct would have caused the head to turn to see if there was a way out on that side street. But the driver's head never turned looking for a way out of the parade route at that moment. And that's what caused my perception of what was going on that day to change.
When you say side street, you're referring to the street that runs in front of the Martha Merrill bookstore?
Correct.
Gasper Street?
Gasper Street.
And again, just to clarify, when we look at exhibit number 120 here, the person in white, is that a member of your band?
Yes, that is. That is one of the student conductors.
And then the person in the foreground on the right with a blurry face, is that another? I don't know if you know who it is, but can you tell us if that's a member of your band?
That is a member of our band, yes.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for this witness. Thank you.
All right, court's going to take a break before we do cross-exam. Take our afternoon break for about 15 minutes. All rise for the jury, please. But we'll see. All right, we are back on the record. Appearances are as they were before. We'll bring the jury out for cross. Go ahead.
For that, Your Honor, can we address the subject matter jurisdiction, please?
No, not right now.
Is that a judicial determination, Your Honor? Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Mr. Brooks, do you have any questions for this witness? Go ahead. On the evening of November 21st, 2021, do you recall what officer conducted your interview?
I do not recall.
Can you recall if it was a detective or just a regular officer?
I do not recall.
You mentioned earlier in testimony that there was a side street where there could have been an exit out of the parade route provided. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, yes.
Do you recall if that side street was barricaded in any way?
I do not recall.
Do you recall if there was another side street on the opposite side of the street?
The other side of the street has a plaza, so there's an open space, but it's not a traffic, for car traffic street.
Do you recall what that street would be used for if not for traffic?
It's an open space where people who have been on the shops on Main Street can go down to the Riverwalk.
Do you know if cars can park there?
They may not.
So it's basically like just a walkway.
Correct.
From what you recall, can you estimate the speed of the vehicle that you saw that day?
I'm not good at estimating speeds, but it felt fast as it went past me. It felt like it was accelerating.
And you stated you was relatively close to the vehicle when it passed you?
Yes, I was.
Were you injured in any way?
I was not. Fortunately, I'd moved just in time.
Do you recall if anybody that may have been directly next to you was injured in any way?
They were not.
So would it be fair to say that everyone in your immediate area was not struck?
Depends on how you want to define immediate, but the first 4 rows of the band, no one was struck because at that point everyone had run away.
I was referring to, I guess I wasn't clear enough on immediate. I was referring to directly next to you.
Directly next to me, no.
Were you able to get a license plate number of the vehicle?
I was not.
Did you notice any tinted windows to the vehicle?
It's 11 months ago, but I believe there were in the back, but I don't want to say yes or no for sure on that.
Did you see anyone else in the vehicle?
I did not.
Could you see the back seats of the vehicle?
I did not look at the back seats.
Could you see the passenger seat of the vehicle?
I could.
Do you recall anyone being in the passenger seat?
I did not see anyone in the passenger seat.
Did you initially hear any sounds before you realized that something was wrong?
The band had just started playing, and so I was concentrating and listening to the sounds of the band, and then all of a sudden it was just the sound of chaos as the car came through the band.
So it would be fair to say that it was pretty loud.
Where I was at that moment, yes, because I was directly in the middle of the band.
Would you say extremely loud or moderately loud?
I would say moderately loud, and as the band director, my job was listening to the sound of the band, and so I could give the students feedback when we got back to school. So that's where my focus was.
from your estimation, do you think it would have the sounds from the band and the people, just the parade itself, would that at any time impaired you from hearing everything that was going on?
Everything, likely, but for example, like it would have still been, it wasn't so loud I would have heard a car horn. That I would have been able to hear.
I wasn't referring to that.
Okay, I was just asking because you were asking volumes, and so I couldn't have heard everything. I couldn't have heard something soft, but something that loud as an example.
So, just to be clear, from your opinion, you think you would have been able to hear a horn?
I believe I would have.
Even at the same time listening for the band notes, as you say, you have to give them feedback when you got back to school?
Because that would have been an unexpected sound, so that would have been something that would have stood out in my memory.
It would have been something that draws your attention.
Exactly.
So in your opinion, do you estimate it would have been hard to hear any screaming or anything of that nature?
We started, as soon as the screaming started, we did hear that immediately. Because as soon as the screaming started, the students stopped playing, and so that loudness...
One second.
I'm sorry.
Do you recall how long you had been actively participating in the parade at the time of the incident?
That had been my first year back as the director of band for a while, but I marched in that parade in high school myself. So I've attended on the years that I was not teaching, so it's probably my 40th time plus at that parade.
I think you probably misunderstood.
Okay.
Well, that was still... I don't have to ask that question. I was referring to how long you had been marching at
that time.
At that point in...
Probably, blocks all change size pretty quickly in Waukesha, but we had been going for about 4 blocks. We were about at the halfway point of the parade route.
Did you notice anything amiss up until that point?
Up until that point, no.
Did you hear any law enforcement radios that may have alerted you to something being wrong?
No.
So it'd be fair to say, as far as you know, everything was pretty much standard?
Up until the moment, yes.
You stated in your report that you were walking backwards, facing the students?
You stated in your report that you were walking backwards, facing the students?
No, I was walking forward because the students near me were walking backwards. So I was the eyes in front for the students who were marching backwards.
So is it possible the report could have misquoted what you said?
I have not seen the report.
The report that I have would be page 2.
I don't have that in front of me.
Would you like to see it?
Sure. So I see it's not in, there we go. So I was facing forward, and then as soon as I heard sounds, I turned around and started facing backwards at that time to see what was happening. So my direction of movement until the incident started was forward. And then once I heard unexpected sounds coming from the back of the van, then I turned around.
Do you recall the statement that's in the report, though? She stated that she was walking backwards facing the students. Do you recall that?
I do not. I guess I recall, yes, I must have. I don't recall this exact moment. I've spoken to lots of officers.
Do you recall thinking that the SUV was driving right at you?
It felt like it for a moment, yes.
And you stated that you initially started to chase after the vehicle, but briefly, but then stopped.
That was my instinct at the moment because I don't know why. That was my instinct at the moment.
Mr. Brooks, are you done with the statement?
Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, no problem. I think you know.
Would it be fair to say that the unexpectedness of the event may have clouded everything that you recall about the event?
I think there's certain aspects of the event that I have great clarity for because it was such a life-changing thing. There are certain moments that are very clear in my memory. And then there's other aspects that maybe other people noticed that maybe 11 months later that are less clear because some of the other more graphic details are so strong in my memory.
It would be fair to say, though, that, or would it be, rather, I'm sorry about that, would it be fair to say that you don't recall everything from that November 21st evening?
That would be accurate.
To your recollection, would you have left out any details in your report?
No.
Were you able to see any license plate number on the vehicle?
I was not.
Do you recall about how far you initially had the reaction to chase after the vehicle, but then turn back to your students?
It was just a few steps.
Do you recall exactly where you were at
I was
in the parade?
in terms of the order of the parade.
In terms of what intersections you may have been at?
I was personally right outside of Martha Merrill's bookstore.
From the video footage, there were clearly a lot of spectators or people that weren't actively involved in the parade.
Yes.
Did you at any time see any of the spectators struck?
I did not.
After the incident, did you see any news reports about the incident?
I did.
Did any news reports that you saw jog anything to your memory?
Not especially. Maybe just showed different things that happened that evening in different parts of Main Street where I wasn't. but
So-
nothing changed my recollections of the South Band experience.
So it would be fair to say that what was reported on the news, you kind of pretty much already knew?
Correct.
Did you recall the news reporting how many people may have been hurt?
Yes.
From which you recall and observed, do you think that those said news reports were accurate?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained. It's not relevant.
About how long did you stay at the parade after the incident?
I did not have my watch with me that evening, but we were there for quite a while because the students had scattered, and so it took us a while, as well as waiting to make sure all the students that were injured were taken by first responders. And they were overwhelmed, so it took a while for first responders to get to everyone.
So it would be fair to say that by the time you actually left, it was nightfall.
That is correct.
Do you recall the power going out?
That did not happen till we were back at the high school.
So you had already left the
Correct.
parade route by the time there was no power.
Correct.
Do you recall what time you left?
I don't recall. It would be in the bus company records, but
No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Just some brief clarification, and then I'd like to show one video, Your Honor, if that's all right. There were a few mentions during cross-examination about your report, in quotation marks.
yes.
You didn't actually sit down and type up a police report after the parade, did you?
No, I did not.
Irrelevant.
Overruled. She may answer. Can you state your answer again?
I did not.
If there is an objection, let me rule
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. You met with police officers after the fact and provided interviews, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then, do you know whether they wrote police reports summarizing those statements?
If they did, I did not see those.
Okay. I would like to play for you exhibit number 22 one more time. And I'd like to play it for the jury as well, Your Honor, if that's all right.
Objection. We saw this video numerous times at this point.
Are you going to play the whole thing or parts of it?
The witness was asked about whether she heard a horn honking, and so I'm simply going to
She was
play.
not asked if she heard a horn honking. She was asked, did the sound of the parade.
I recall what was asked. I'm sorry, tell me again why you want the jury to see this and the question. Because she was not asked specifically about a horn. She offered something.
In response to a question about what she heard. I simply want to play this video to see if the witness can hear the sound of a horn honking.
Objection. What's the relevancy at this point? She never was asked the question, Your Honor.
I'll sustain the objection.
Okay. I don't have anything else for this witness. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You may step down.
Thank you.
Your next witness, please.
Your Honor, the state calls Kyle Jewell.